we need to recognize that what Mnangagwa is doing here is what they describe in political science as a constitutional coup. So he is actually carrying out a constitutional coup. And a constitutional coup, to those who might not be aware, it's when you are using legal tools to effect an unlawful change of the constitution, usually benefiting the incumbent. That is what a constitutional coup is. You are simply using legal means to entrench dictatorship or even erode democracy or even the rule of the people, the rule of majority. So it's kind of different from what the other coup was in 2017, which was mostly where we saw tanks rolling in the streets. That was mostly a military type of a coup, and it has a lot of international outcry if you do it that way. So in this phase now, Mnangagwa has now done this constitutional coup to further strengthen his grip on power. But there is something that I want us to understand here, that it's an admission by Mnangagwa that the Zimbabwe Defense Forces has a constitutional right to uphold the constitution. I think that's the most important thing, and I'm so happy that the Zambis of this world, they even notice it. Right? It clearly shows that the army is the last line of defense. It clearly shows that the army has a constitutional right to participate in active politics when things go south. It shows that the army can actually intervene in the event that the executive have overstepped its authority. It's an admission. The fact that they want to amend it, it means that they recognize it. Right? This explains why the High Court, even the Supreme Court, if I'm not mistaken, the Constitutional Court, went on to say that what happened in 2017 was lawful. And indeed, it was the upholding of the Constitution where we saw that the president who was succeeded was no longer capacitated to run the state functions. Right? So the army stepping in was to protect the Constitution and the people of Zimbabwe, according to what the Constitution says. So in this case, why is Mnangagwa now eroding the powers of the army? What happened? Is it not the same army that put him into power when he ran away and jumped the border? Why is he rewarding them by eroding their power? What is he afraid of? Because as far as I'm concerned, Zimbabwe's army has been the most powerful instrument in a leadership, succession leadership in Zimbabwe since independence, even before independence. It is the army. Political parties, they play a role. But in history, when we look at the history, the Zimbabwean army cannot be excluded from deciding who rules or governs this country, because it is entrenched in the Gagao Declaration. It continues to run in the DNA of ZANU-PF, and ZANU-PF itself was formed by a collective of the army, which is Zipra and Zandla. So what changes when this clause is removed is simply that the army will no longer have a proactive role. They will now have a passive role. When I'm saying a passive role, I'm saying they cannot assess a situation that the constitution has been violated. Their role will now be to obey orders only, right, from a higher authority, which is the executive or the parliament. So they will not be in a position to assess the political landscape to say, in this event, is the constitution being respected on behalf of the people? They will now be carrying it as a subordinate role, where they are subordinate to the executive, where they are answerable to the executive. So it then weakens them to justify any legal intervention they can take out or carry out in the event that the president has gone rogue. In this case, the president has gone rogue. The cabinet has even approved a rogue amendment or a rogue bill. So as it stands right now, the constitution mandates the army to intervene, irrespective of the 90 days that has been talked about, that there's going to be consultation with the people. As it stands, the army can intervene. Even now, I'm not saying the army should intervene. I'm against coups myself. But when the judiciary has no capacity to stop a rogue president, when the parliament has no capacity to stop a rogue president, and even the executive branch, which is the Senate and the other branches of government, what is left? It is the army that must intervene. So a lot of things will change, Uncle. A lot of things changes. But one thing I'm happy about, even in the event that Mnangagwa succeeds in putting through this despotic draconian law, the army will still have a legal right to say that the process through which this amendment was smuggled into the constitution is illegal in itself, right? If Mnangagwa does not put this thing through a referendum, the army will still have a legal right to say that the violation of the amendment of the constitution was not legal in the first instance, because the process that leads to legality was not followed. And by process, we are meaning the consultative process where people will be consulted and a referendum will be held. So we're now waiting to see if Mnangagwa is going to hold a referendum. I hope that he makes a mistake not to hold one, because all those constitutional changes will not hold effect if there is no referendum. There is no way that you can make such a substantial constitutional change and never allow citizens to give their input or feedback into what you have proposed, because it affects their lives, right? The parliamentarians were voted into power by the people. So if there is any constitutional change that affects their daily life, they must come back to the people and ask the people whether they like this or not. That is what the referendum is meant for. So it cannot be skipped. The stage of the referendum cannot be skipped, right? I'm very sorry, but if anyone, those ones are not PF right now, the president is making a huge mistake. I don't know whether it is an uncontrollable appetite of power, or he's just greedy. He wants to cling to power to death. I don't know. But whoever is advising him is advising him wrongly, and is doing it in a dangerous way, right? Because this has got a potential of actually creating anarchy in the country. It can actually create instability even in the region, because there is no way that you're going to impose your will on 20 million people without their consultation, without their input, without their implied consent through a referendum, which is free and fair. And this is the big issue that we need to ask ourselves. So a lot of things will change. There's going to be a limited democratic space as far as who runs the apparatus of security in the country. There's going to be limited control of
Welcome to Zim One, a platform where every voice matters and every idea counts. This is a space dedicated to nation building, shaped by the thoughts, hopes, and lived experiences of the people of Zimbabwe. From the streets to the classrooms, from farms to factories, from elders to the youth, we bring together brilliant points from different gatherings of citizens across our nation. These are conversations rooted in reality, driven by patriotism, and guided by the belief that Zimbabwe's future is built by its people. Here, we listen, we reflect, and we share ideas that inspire unity, progress, and sustainable development. This channel is not about politics alone. It is about solutions. Not about division, but about collective responsibility. Join us as Zimbabweans from all walks of life contribute insights that strengthen our communities, uplift our nation, and shape the Zimbabwe we all want to see. This is our voice. This is our vision. This is nation building together.